Welcome to Cybersecurity Considerations for Benefit Plans. My name is Dan Sturm and I'm a partner with McKonly Asbury. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to be talking about a report issued by the DOL ERISA Advisory Council. The report focuses on pension and welfare benefit plans and is going to provide you, the plan sponsor, with cyber risk management strategies that you can utilize on your plans. With most benefit plans, whether that be a 401k, a pension, or some health and welfare plan, there's massive amounts of data that's exchanged daily over the internet, through email, through many electronic means. That data often includes very sensitive participant information, including social security number, dates of birth. The primary purpose of this report issued by the DOL is to raise awareness to make sure that plan sponsors and all those involved with benefit plans understand the sensitivity of all the information that's maintained and shared for these plans. One of the key items noted in this report is that many organizations have cybersecurity plans for their business, but not necessarily those plans don't filter down to the benefit plans. So while the organization has a great policy in place and great risk management in place, that may not necessarily translate over to the benefit plan and the information that's shared. And as I already pointed out, there's so much sensitive information shared with benefit plans just because the use of outside service providers, whether that be an auditor, whether that be a TPA, but often there's many service providers involved in these plans. The DOL absolutely wants this to be a priority for plan sponsors. There's too much information being shared without proper controls currently going on at this point in time. I fully anticipate over the next several years this information going from suggestions to absolute requirements with benefit plans. So what does all this mean to you? First and foremost, it means considering the adoption of a cybersecurity strategy and policy specifically related to your benefit plan. And here on this slide, you'll see the few key steps that are involved with starting that strategy. You want to understand all the plans that you have in place. That can be healthcare, that can be 401k, pension. There can be any number of plans, even down to a dental plan that may be with an outside service provider. But with those plans, you want to understand what data and information you have locally stored on your computers or your cloud information, and what you're sharing with outside service providers and how that information is being shared. Once you understand that information, you can begin developing policies and strategies to try to protect that data. Next, you want to consider what's the most appropriate framework for your cybersecurity risk management. That could be something based on your overall business strategy. Something that can just be refined down to specifically relate to your benefit plan. You want to consider if there's any need for process changes. You want to know who's accessing the data, who has the ability to see the information, especially any information that's being shared. One of the most important items on this slide is customizing the strategy to fit your organization and plans. You don't want this strategy and new process to be overburdensome to your organization. The processes you develop for an 80-person organization are going to vary greatly from a process that may be in place for a 1,500-person organization. So I think that's important. You just absolutely don't want this process to be overburdensome or far exceed the goals and strategies you set in place. Another important item to note is that your plan may bear reasonable costs for these measures. So just like you can charge other administrative expenses such as auditing or record keeper fees through the plan, reasonable expenses to protect the plan's data can also be passed along to the plan. But again, the important thing to note is reasonable costs. You can't develop an overburdensome strategy to protect everything and charge exorbitant fees through the plan and hit the participant accounts with that. Almost every plan will contract with outside service providers. So just as you're going to evaluate your own controls internally, your own policies, you should be doing the same with your service providers. Your service providers often have at least the same amount of access to participant data that you do, but quite honestly, in more cases, they probably have more access to more detailed information. So you're going to want to understand their cybersecurity programs, how they're going to maintain your participant and employee data, and how it's going to be protected. You want to know how it's going to be encrypted. If there is a data breach, who's going to assume the responsibility? Does your contract put the onus entirely on you as the plan sponsor? Or does the contract provide some responsibility to the provider? Almost every service provider we work with actually has an external review of their controls, and we call that a SOC report. And basically it's focusing on the controls we've highlighted above just to make sure that that service provider has proper controls over limiting access to the system, protecting data, and things like that. At a minimum, any service provider you work with, you should be requesting these reports, reading through them and seeing if there's any control weaknesses that concern you and what the provider's doing to fix that. Or maybe the problem's too big for you to want to worry about, so maybe you need to think about another provider. I can't emphasize the importance of understanding your service providers enough. While you think you may push your responsibility away to a service provider as a planned fiduciary, the DOL doesn't look at it that way. These providers are an extension of your organization. Should something happen, typically the DOL is going to look to you, the plan sponsor, as did you fulfill your responsibility to protect these participants? So don't look at it as passing the responsibility to another organization or thinking you paid another organization, they're the experts, and if something happens, it's on them. Typically what I've seen is the DOL is going to come right back to the plan sponsor on these matters. So knowing this information, what's the next steps for your organization? Based on this report, I would absolutely make this a priority for your organization because, as I mentioned, I believe in the next few years this is going to become more than a suggestion from the DOL. It's going to be requirements. If I'm an organization in this position, I'd rather stay ahead of the curve. So once that's a priority, make sure you start developing your timeline for when you want this risk policy to be in place, specifically related to your benefit plans. After the policy is in place, you're going to want to revise your current processes to fit your new strategy and policy to mitigate the risks you identify. You're also going to want to assess or even reassess your current service providers. If you're not sure what policies your providers have in place currently, now's a good time to start evaluating those SOC reports, getting on the phone with your sales reps, and asking them what they're doing to protect your participant data and what measures they have in place that can help you be comfortable that things are being taken care of from their end. If you have questions, please feel free to contact us at McKonly Asbury. We'll be glad to walk through any suggestions we might have for your organization and guide you through the process. Thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Have a great day.